Hello, it's the Happy Healthcare Professionals live show. I hope you guys are well this evening. Wherever you are joining from, say hi in the comments. I love it when people come in and they say hello. This is the Happy Healthcare Professional show. If you don't know this show, if you've not watched us, we are live on my LinkedIn profile, on YouTube under Kamal, the Pharmacy Career Change Coach. And we're also live in the Pharmacy Freedom Method Facebook community as well. And what is this show about? Well, it's about really showcasing how we can become happy healthcare professionals. I really want to inspire you by really bringing you some really interesting conversations and ideas about things that you can do and how you can actually reinvent your career, make it happy, become that happy healthcare professional that you've always intended on being. And if you don't know who I am, let me introduce myself. My name is Kamal. I am a former national level pharmacist turned pharmacy career change coach, and also a holistic pharmacist as well. I am a certified health and life coach, and I really genuinely love helping my colleagues to reinvent their careers, to create careers that they feel really fulfilled by, that give them the flexibility and the freedom that they need, and ultimately become that happy healthcare professional again, because that's what we all want in life, right? We just all want to be able to help others. And that's what we came into our profession to do. And we want to go back to being that. So that's what I want to do by inspiring you through this show. And recently, I've been thinking a lot about leadership. And we've had discussions on this show. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about conscious leadership on this show. And I'm really, really interested in what does it take for somebody to become a leader within the NHS, or to become a leader in healthcare in general. And when I was looking for someone that wasn't a healthcare professional, I really wanted to find out what is it like for someone who isn't a healthcare professional to actually reach a leadership level. I came across Monique. And Monique really is somebody who has done it all within the NHS. She has forged an incredible career from her PA role all the way up to senior leadership. And I was really inspired by Monique's journey, because she has done something that very few of us actually do. And so I was so happy to bring her onto this show today and be able to talk to her about her journey and really hear from her what her experiences have been like, and draw upon her knowledge and some of the challenges that she experienced as well. So without further ado, let me bring Monique on screen. Hi, Monique.
Hello. Oh my gosh, what a big introduction. I feel I better live up to that in what I have to say. Thank you very much.
You so will. I'm so happy to have you on this show, because I really feel like I've obviously get a lot of, I interview a lot of healthcare professionals, right? Mainly pharmacists, because I'm a pharmacist myself. But I find it so important for us to learn from other professions. And I've talked about this on our show before. I've talked about cross-pollination and, us really, really learning from each other. And I really would love for you to share your journey. So tell us about you. Tell us about your career story.
Okay. So I started off, as you said, as a PA in the NHS in 2001. So my oldest daughter was 2, and I was working for a cancer service improvement team. Had taken the job because just, read the person's spec, I can do this, let's do this. But then became really interested in what the service improvement team were doing, and wanted to understand the techniques of change management more. I was doing my business degree at the time, and when I completed that, I remember sort of saying, I've got my degree now, I'd really like to get more involved and put my hands up to help some of the service improvement leads with their projects. I was probably quite cheeky, is the way I would describe myself when I was younger. Always asked why, always wanted to get involved. And as a result of that, when a job came up as a service improvement lead, I went for it, and my manager encouraged me to go for it, and I got it. And that started off with, I think, my love affair of service improvement and change, and the kind of concept of influencing people to change and showing them about the benefits of change. And I worked with some really good clinicians at that time. And I remember one of my clinical leads was a gastroenterologist. And that was really my first foray into understanding more of the clinical side of care. But I realized that I had a set of skills in project management and service improvement that really blended well with working with clinical teams. And I think just learning that, learning leadership, I think early in my career from a very well-respected clinician, how he spoke to people, how he approached things, really stood me in good stead. And that kind of cheekiness, I suppose, pushed me on. So when I thought I'd learned all I needed to know about service improvement, I saw a job come up in commissioning. And because the role was called a service improvement manager, I thought, I think I can go for that. Went for it and got it. And again, was very, very lucky to work with some great old school commissioners, really taught me contract management, budgets, working with primary care, working with hospital staff as well, and just really kept building on my skills. And in every role I've had, I've secured an internal promotion. And I'm not saying that from a place of arrogance. I'm saying that I use that to navigate my career, because I think when you're young and you haven't got all the skills, but you might have a set of talents that are needed internally, it's like a 6-month or 12-month interview, isn't it? When you're working in that role, people can see what else you can do. So when jobs come up, I think you've got that extra bit that you add to what you're bringing, that if you were going for a job cold, you wouldn't have it on paper. Your application might not stand out, but I think doing a good application together with they know you, that's really stood me in good stead in my career. And then going up into the big leadership roles, I became a head of commissioning and managed a multi-million-pound commissioning budget across a large part of inner London. That was a big job, big high-profile job. I knew my skill of commissioning, but I really had to grow up as a leader. And I think that's that, and my skills and learning from good leaders. When the new director role came up in my organisation, the role I left last month, I felt really ready for it, because I'd had, how many years of experience in the NHS, been exposed to some great leaders, taken quite big jumps in my career, which was hard. And there were some failures in there. There were some big challenges, but actually backing myself to go for it culminated in me landing an executive role on the board.
It's just incredible. I mean, that cheekiness that you talk about, it's like just going for it. And Lisa just said, I love people that dare to jump and change. What is it within you that you think really kind of made you say to yourself, do you know what? I can do this? Because some of the roles that you've talked about, a lot of people, even when they're working within the NHS, right, they might see that job and they might think, I might have some of the skills, but I don't have all of them.
Yes.
And I don't have the confidence to go for that role because I'm not ticking all the boxes.
Yeah. That there's so many people I speak to, and especially in the NHS, is very linear, isn't it? People move up roles in bands, and I jumped bands because I suppose my mum's always instilled in me, you can do it, and to see yourself as equal. If they can do it, you can do it. Never see yourself as inferior. So although I'd be scared, what I would say is that I believed in my ability. That's what I've always done. Because that's the thing I can control, is my ability. There's lots of factors that we can't control, and I'm sure we're going to talk about some of those. The challenges of working as a young Black woman in that space. There were things I couldn't control, but what I could control was my ability. And I'm a quick learner. But the confidence, I think I've always felt scared. I've always felt scared making those jumps, but I've always thought, if I can do 70% of that job, I'm going to go for it. What's the worst that can happen? You don't get the job. You're not successful. Okay, you feel a little bit bruised, but you dust yourself off and you can carry on. But imagine if you see someone who gets that job who had 65% of what was needed on paper and you didn't go for it. you just live with that regret. And I just think that I've always taken that chance. And sometimes I haven't got roles, you know, it hasn't worked out, but sometimes it has.
Yeah, I mean, what comes to mind for me when you've just talked about that is resilience, right? You need so much resilience. I want to talk about some of the challenges because, you know, you are a woman of color, you are a Black woman who has reached leadership levels within the NHS. And I can imagine that was not an easy path for you.
No,
So, you
no.
know, let's talk about some of those challenges, Monique. What did you experience and how did you overcome them?
I didn't know at the time because I didn't know the term, but some of what I experienced is what we call microaggressions now. But I didn't understand that's what they were. I knew people saw me as a bit of a novelty. You know, look at the, you know, she's young, but she's sharp. You know, she's Black, but she doesn't appear. You know, people say things like, "Oh, you're not like some other people." They don't know how to phrase it, but you know, they're getting at something. Or you look really young to be that role. Or I remember I said to someone, you know, you introduced stuff, and I said, "Oh, I'm the commissioner." And they said, "What? Who are you, the receptionist?" And I said, "No, the commissioner." You know, and I think those things where I would just brush it off and not really think about it, but on reflection now, with what you know more about and what you hear more about, I understand that they were microaggressions. But I was so determined. I suppose I'm quite single-minded in that way. If I know I can do something, I'd kind of stand up to it, you know, and say, at the end of the day, I know I'm good at my job. So you see, my name doesn't convey that I'm Black. So I could be communicating with someone on email for quite a long time. And when they'd meet me, you'd see them kind of almost recoil to go, "Oh, you're Monique. I wasn't expecting it to be you." You know, and it's like, yes, I am. And yeah, I do know what I'm talking about and I do know how to work. And I'm also polite and engaging, you know. And so I say to people, it's not about ignoring what's going on. I think there's a lot now and it's much better now. And I'm glad that people are being brave and speaking up. But I also talk about baggage. You know, we can take the baggage into the space, or we can choose to not take the baggage because people are going to bring that baggage to you. You know, it is going to happen. And I'm at the moment, I very much am focused on supporting people to be brave, because it is right that we should speak up. But when people do speak up, it's really hard. And even if they are doing the right thing, even if they're supported in their organization to do the right thing, and to have situations addressed, it's still very stressful when you're going through that. And I think we really need to support people when they do speak up, as well as supporting them to speak up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have to say, I'm really encouraged by the conversations that are happening now, right?
And more need to happen, though. More need to
Oh,
happen.
absolutely.
You know,
100%, 100%, you know. And, you know, you talk the microaggressions that you talk about, you know, as an Asian woman, I've had that many a time. You know, I remember a very, very distinct conversation that I had many years ago when I was working for a pharmacy that did medication for nursing homes and care homes. And so all of our work was done over the phone. And so I was communicating with doctors over the phone about changes to prescriptions and that kind of thing. And I remember speaking to one doctor on the phone, and we were having a conversation about this patient's medication, wanting to change it. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, are you of South Asian descent? And I sort of went, yeah, but how did you know that from speaking to me on the phone? And he just sort of said, oh, I thought you were Indian. And I was just really taken aback by it. I think for me, because I've been born and brought up here. And so of course I'm Asian by background. You know, that is my heritage, right? But when you speak to people on the phone and they bring it up, I was just like really taken aback by that. I'd never experienced anything like that before. And I have to say, I still think about that at times, because you're very conscious of it. You know, as a person of color, you're very conscious of the fact that you're not white, right?
And you know what I talk about, and I'm proud. I'm very proud to be a Black woman. And I talk about it a lot. I speak a lot about people being their real self and their true self. You know, I know people talk about code switching. I don't believe in that. And the reason why I say that is not because I don't want people to progress. Some people believe that's what they have to do to progress, you know, and I say no, because this is all about inclusion now, isn't it? And people feeling like they belong, people can bring their true self to work. People, you know, microaggressions are called out and people are educated why they're unacceptable, you know. But if you're not your true self in your workspace, especially if you are one of very few or the only person of color, how is your organization going to know what it is you need and want if you're code switching? They're going to create an environment, and if they're willing and to address issues, they're going to address it to what you're pretending to be, not who you really are, you know. And this is why I talk about being brave as well, because the more we all rise up together, you know, the more that we will support our organizations and institutions to address inclusion properly. But I would like inclusion to be addressed as my true self, you know, not as a caricature or a work version of Monique who's Monique. That's it.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, because we come with, you know, with our baggage that you referred to previously, right? We come with all of our history, you know, we come with our heritage, and it's so important to bring that to the workplace, because especially in a place of healthcare, you know,
Absolutely.
we are treating and coming across people from all different cultures and backgrounds, you know, from all communities.
Very much so. My organization that I've just left was 41. I don't like the term BAME, but just to use it to explain it here, was 41% BAME. Okay. One of the boroughs we served was one of the most ethnically diverse in London. So actually, you know, it's important that people are their true self. You know, organizations need to be a representation of the communities they serve. And that is important in healthcare as well. So we should be seeing a wide spectrum of age, you know, of sex, of socioeconomic and demographic backgrounds, and of race. You know, I always talk about, I embrace dynamic, diverse teams, because that's how you get the beauty of some of what me and you have spoken about. The cross-pollination you talk about comes from a dynamic, diverse team as well, not just in clinical discipline, but also in background.
Yeah, completely. 100%. 100%. You know, I think that there's so much that, I mean, you may or may not be aware of the fact that I'm part of, you know, I've started this BAME Pharmacist Leaders, you know, leaders meetup with my colleagues Rena and Harpreet, and you know, and the whole reason why we did it was because we want to encourage all women of all backgrounds really to take that role, that leadership role, because they want to. Obviously not everybody wants to, but because they want to, and because they knowing that they've got the support and they've got others that are going to raise them up.
Very much so. It's you know, it's and I used that term earlier, isn't it? When I was leaving my role, and I remember colleagues saying, you know, Monique, we're so sad you're going, and you know, we feel like you represented us. It was good to have a role model. Do you know how I felt when I saw a Black woman on the board? You know, it really felt like, wow, we could get there too. And I say back to them, let's rise up together then, you know, for all of you in your middle leadership roles, for all of you who are aspiring. I know you feel scared on your own, but there are a few of you here now. Rise up together, you know, because when I got my job, I was the only Black person on the board. we had a Black medical director who joined us, but at the time I was the only Black person on the board. And although my organisation is very supportive and welcoming, I still felt that, you know. So I think if you do rise up, and as you said, if you are creating those community spaces, you know, those peer support spaces, and also those inspiration spaces, I think it's really important to do that.
Yeah, 100%. I want to go back to some of the challenges that you experienced, Monique, because, you know, you talk about the fact that you were the only Black woman, right, on that leadership board. What did you have allies up there, and what was it like to have those allies there?
Yeah, so the thing is, I worked in a very close-knit executive team. So for me, my colleagues were very supportive. Also, I was promoted from within. So, you know, I'm working now with people who, so my boss became my peer, you know, and he was a white man. And we're very close friends, actually, but very supportive. And I think my colleagues understood it from my perspective as well. So, but I suppose they also knew I delivered and then some. And I'm not saying that in an arrogant way, I'm saying that in a real way. So people valued what I brought to the table. The fact that I happened to be a Black woman, yes. And sometimes I felt it most probably was a bit tokenistic, not in a bad way, but in a real way. You know, that was the truth. And you have to accept some of that. If you are the only one, sometimes it can feel tokenistic, but I know I got my job on merit. And I know my boss made a point of telling me how well I did in the recruitment process, because she wanted me to be very aware that I got my job on merit. And I know I did. Because I know who I was up against. But it is challenging, and it is challenging because also you're a role model. You know, so for my Black colleagues, you know, up and down the organisation, I know they looked up to me as well, you know. And it's beautiful when you hear them say what it meant for them to see me in the role and to see me doing well. But I also wanted to serve them well. You know, I wanted to do well. I wanted to represent us well. And I continue to want to do that. And I wanted to inspire them and encourage them by them feeling proud when they see me in my role. I'm just going to plug my light in, Common, because I can see I'm getting darker.
Please do.
All of a sudden, so
no, please do.
Is that a bit better?
That's much better. Yeah, we can see you now.
Sorry about that.
No, don't worry at all. You're good. You're all good.
Okay.
I'm going to come to some of the comments, because Darshana said a couple of things that's quite interesting as well, that, you know, and she's kind of reflecting on some of the things that you've talked about. You know, she's saying how different cultures and different heritage can only enhance our contributions in the workplace. Good employers embrace the difference in workforce as a strength, right? Absolutely.
Very true.
You know, very, very true. And what you said really struck a chord, actually, just now, when you said, I wanted to represent them really well myself. I think that's really quite empowering, actually, because we forget, as when you're doing things and you're kind of doing it because you think, okay, I could do this role, and, you know, I feel inspired by it, I feel challenged by it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do it. We can often forget that actually there are going to be others that are going to be looking towards us and saying, Monique is doing that role. You know, how did she get there? I'd love to be able to do that, you know, and also seeing the fruits of your work, of your labor, right? You know, seeing that you are putting the effort in, and the output is that it's actually a better service for people like you, right? You know?
You know, I think it's true. It's the that thing of, like you said, people being able to see it. You know, how does the saying go about, you know, you have to see it to believe it, you know? And I think people being able to see that, and see even you in some of the roles that you held in your career, people being able to see you in that role and to know, actually, I can achieve this too. is really, really important, you know, and I think that's something that we need to remember in terms of not as a pressure situation, but as a, yes, not only do you achieve for yourself, but you achieve for all. And I also think it's really important to serve your community. As leaders, we're here to serve. And I know people say that a lot and it can sound a bit gimmicky, but it's so true. We are here to serve our people. You know, it's our people who've put us in the leadership role. You know, whether that's your people in your team, your people in your organization, your people in your system, your people in your local community. They've put you in that role. They've taken you to where you are. I was very supported in my role up and down the organization. So many people wanted me to do well, and that lifted me. That lifted me when we had such difficult things. Some of the changes we were doing, you feel like you're pushing a massive boulder up the hill, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that support and that energy really helped me at times. And you mentioned resilience, really gave me a level of resilience at times to keep going, you know, to really keep going.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's such an important, it's so important to have that support around you, right? And those people really rooting for you. And again, you know, going back to what you're saying about, you know, it's about community, right?
Yes.
Your community,
Yes.
and really kind of serving others within your community, whether it is your team, whether it is your organization, whether it is your community.
Yeah.
You know, we're part of, you know, we're part of
Yeah.
lots of different types of communities, right?
Yeah.
And
I think, you know,
yeah,
sorry to interrupt you, but
no,
that's such a
please.
powerful statement, what you say there, because, you know, we speak about this and how you see each other in your team. And I think that thing about my path to leadership, my teams, you know, it was my job to look after and protect my team, but my team would run through walls for me, you know, and really, really delivered. And, you know, you really can, as a leader, that you can create that community in your team. It's one of the most powerful things you can do to deliver and to achieve in your role, is how you empower and encourage and develop others, and to help them feel safe and to feel part of that community. And really, it's about building those different layers and layers and layers of communities, isn't it? The different, I'm going to keep using your term. I love your term, cross-pollination, but it comes to my mind when we're talking about that, because I know me and you spoke about multidisciplinary teams, didn't we? And we were loving that conversation about different clinicians, different care professionals coming together, and how, as senior leaders, do you really support that? It's not just about co-locating people or saying you're now called X team. How do you really foster that? And it's something that I think is such an important thing to learn and have the skills to do as a leader. Really important.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I can honestly say a lot of the stuff that I've learned about leadership has actually come from not being a leader, you know, like, and the way I'll describe that is, you know, when I was a leader of a team, you know, I'll be honest, I was not very good. And the reason why I wasn't very good was because I didn't know how important it was for me to actually have a mission that everyone can you know, can revolve around. But I know that now. And I think a lot of that is because of the fact that, you know, I've been through this kind of entrepreneurial journey. And when you're doing that, you have to have a mission. Like, you know, you can't be successful without it. And I realize that now. And I think if I were to go back into healthcare, like into organizational healthcare, I would definitely be taking that with me. You know, that I would be taking that, you know, it's so important to have something that everyone can revolve around and believe in and work towards together.
Yes. You know, and what I would say is, you tend to find in system working now and working across, you know, teams, people talk a lot about vision, a shared purpose and a shared vision, right?
Yeah.
And you can have that and it can be written down, and that's wonderful. But actually, it's about bringing that to life for your team. What does that mean for me? And that's, even in an organization, I think it's important to do that. What does it mean for me? And for the leader to understand what that means. So be able to communicate that to your team. Well, this is the organizational values, but how does that come to life for us? What does it mean for us? But also then to listen when your team and individuals are telling you, what does that mean for them? And you're looking at it through their lens. And that's one of the things that I think, from not being from a clinical background, but being an executive in a clinical organization, I know that I had to listen very, very carefully to my clinical staff and clinical frontline teams. What does this mean for them? What is it like looking at it through their lens? And I would just listen to understand, not to defend or respond, just to understand where they're coming from. And before I make a major decision, what does that mean for them? Go and speak to them about it. Go and explain to them what we're trying to achieve and hear their concerns. I think that stood me in such good stead to have that respect for my clinical workforce about where they're coming from and why.
Yeah. Respect, building that respect through listening, it's such that there's that in itself is really the sign of a good leader. And I think we touched upon this as well when we spoke about really knowing your team and knowing what their motivations are, what they really love and what they don't really love. And and working around that, right? And that requires a level of self-reflection. And Darshana has pointed that out. You need self-reflection and self-evaluation, right? To be a good leader, right? And it is about that, right? You need to self-reflect. You need to self-evaluate, but you also need to be able to look at that allow others to be able to express their own, desires, their own motivations, their own, their own priorities, because everyone's priorities are different, and it's like knowing that, okay, well, and I think I mentioned this, such and such member of the team goes and sees her mum on a Monday evening.
Yes.
So know that that's a priority for her. Yes. And why would you want to take something away from someone that brings them so much joy and pleasure, right?
Yeah. And I think, you see what you said there is so important as leaders, that you know your people. You need to know your people. I cannot understand why someone wouldn't want to know and understand their team, know and understand the people in their organization and who they're. I love people. I'm intrigued by people. I love learning about people. But before I start talking to you about the project, the program, the corporate conversation, I want to know how you are. I want to know if everything's okay. And if it's not okay, let's talk about that too. So for me, knowing what makes your team tick, knowing what they like and don't, knowing how they like to be recognized, is so powerful. You get so much as a leader. You will get so much more from your team if you do that. You really, really will. Come on, I'm going to go and change the light. It's bugging me. Okay. I'm
Go. Yeah, no, don't worry. You go.
Change the light. Because otherwise I feel like I look so dark. Sorry, everyone who's watching.
No, please do. I'm just bringing on Antoinette's question on the screen. Thank you so much for sharing this, Antoinette, because I think it's a great question. Because Antoinette said, question for Monique, in terms of self-development, what do you do to keep yourself current and up to date?
Ooh, well, luckily, I love learning. So keeping myself up to date is really important. So for me, I love a podcast. I love learning from podcasts. I love also reading. So I personally, the reason why I mostly talk so passionately about leadership is because I'm really interested in leadership and culture. So for me, I love leadership books, and keeping myself topped up in that way is important. Also now, one of the few benefits of the pandemic has been the birth of the webinar, hasn't it? And
oh my God.
listening in on webinars and hearing different perspectives. I like to learn from different perspectives and different points of view, but I think being able to learn from that as well is important. My favorite leadership book is called Talent is Never Enough by John Maxwell. And why I mention that is because that's why I keep myself topped up. Because even if you have a set of talents, there's a whole shed load more of other things that you need to be able to do to be a good, effective and credible leader. I read that book over and over again, by the way. So reading, podcasts, webinars.
I'm going to take that recommendation and definitely read it.
Brilliant book. Really, I like a practical leadership book. You know, theory is important and you can study leadership, of course you can. But what I tend to notice and why people sometimes are not progressing in their careers is because of that lack of practical advice and insight to really break down what some of those leadership theories or approaches mean in practice. You know, I think it's having that nice combination of, and that's why I think learning as you go, continually learning is important, because it's like what you were saying when you reflected about when you managed a team, isn't it? You learn things that will deepen your leadership techniques as you go through your career.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think the other thing is what you touched upon earlier about pushing past that fear, right? You know, taking the action. Actually, you know, this is something that as a healthcare professional, we're so entrenched in the data and the theory and the the outcomes and all of this, right? It's, where we overanalyze and overthink everything, right?
Yeah.
But where we let ourselves down, and this is going to bring me on to leadership for healthcare professionals, but where I think sometimes we let ourselves down is we don't take the action. And, leadership is about, you trying things, testing it, and it potentially failing, and you learning from that failure, right?
Yeah. And that is true. That is a very true statement. However, in the NHS is under a spotlight all the time, isn't it? And although the NHS absolutely talks about wanting to have a continuous improvement culture, an open culture, like what you're describing, isn't it? Fail fast, learn, try again, etc. In reality, that isn't there, and it's not always doesn't always feel like a safe space to really grow and learn. So I think, again, as leaders, if you are leading anybody, please try and create that space where your staff and you feel like that, because that's where you get the best momentum, where the best ideas come from, is when people feel safe to make a mistake, to try something new and to do it. So you're so right. I think it's about making sure, though, that we push to create the environment. And that's why I'm passionate about nurturing and growing brave leaders, because they are out there. I think people just need some support and encouragement and safe spaces to thrive and to bring their talents to the fore. It's there. We need to just bring it out of people a bit more. I honestly believe that. I think there's such a wealth of talent out there, especially in healthcare, that like you said, are not going for the roles, who don't feel safe to try those new things. And, I want people like us, and like your colleagues, where you're creating that network space to really create those safe spaces. And I've heard someone call it the incubator, that kind of feeling where you create the incubator and you really allow people to thrive.
Yeah, I agree 100% with that. I think it's so important. I want to touch upon something that I really wanted to ask you about, and that's healthcare professionals going up that leadership path. Because obviously you've seen it from both sides, essentially.
Yeah.
What have you seen has been the biggest barrier to healthcare professionals actually taking those leadership roles and taking themselves forward? What do you see as being kind of the things that stop them?
Yeah, a couple of things. So one we've touched on already, fear. As I said, I see talent out there, and sometimes a conversation can unlock and encourage someone to put that form in and go for the role. I think it's sometimes, like I said, not knowing what their gaps are. So knowing that they want to move on, but not knowing what their gaps are in relation to looking at senior leadership roles and moving down that path. They're seeing the linear arrangement too much. And maybe a lot of people approached me in the last year about broadening their skill set. So, wanting to build their skills in project management, program management, service improvement, quality improvement, and kind of bringing that in. We also see sometimes that people are brilliant clinicians, but they don't receive any management training. So they go into management roles and they get really exposed. They're not used to managing large teams. They're not used to being able to maneuver in that space. So I think it is really important to have those kind of learning sets. And like I was saying, those practical programs that support new managers in that, so that if they are struggling, they don't end up completely collapsing or walking away from it and going, this wasn't for me, when it could have been for them, but they just didn't have that practical support. I'm a real advocate of trying to lobby for more practical sort of management training and support and leadership programs that are not too heavy and that people can do in more bite-sized chunks.
Yeah, I completely agree with that, because I think if I had had that when I went into my, head of role, I always say this, I don't know where else I could have got to. We hold ourselves back and we don't always recognize our own, our own areas of growth. And you kind of need that. You need that support around you and that person that you can speak to, or that group of people that you can speak to and tap into, who will be able to help you to uncover those, right? And who will be able to support you to say, okay, this is, Kamal, this is an area that you perhaps need a bit more support in. Here are some of the things that you can do. And I think also the other thing that I come across quite a lot is we don't know what we don't know, right? So there is a lot of support that's out there, but often we don't even know it exists. And I'll give you an example where I get asked by pharmacists all the time, like, can I get an online job and what can I do? And it's really interesting because you expose yourself to opportunities if you're open to them. Do you know what I mean? And so sometimes they'll look on the jobs board and they'll say there's nothing for me, and I'm like, but have you actually opened up the possibilities of doing something that you didn't think you could do? And that's just one example. But it's going back to what I was saying a little bit earlier about you don't know what you don't know, and you don't always know what is out there and what is available. And that's why I really want you to talk about your program.
And that's what I was going to say.
Your program really nicely.
So thank you. I think that's why. So there's two reasons why I left my role. One was because it was an extremely busy role, very high pressured. And whilst, like I said, I delivered, I've got 3 children, and having done the job for 4.5 years, I felt like I need a better balance. This isn't going to balance. We've gone through the pandemic. I've done really well, but if I stay working like this isn't going to be good for my own long-term well-being. And I want to spend more time and have more quality time with my children. The other side of it, though, is because my absolute purpose is about growing and nurturing brave leaders. And so, as you mentioned, my program, it's exactly what you're talking about. I've designed a short and sharp program, which I'm running free of charge, and it's webinar based, and it's Be Yourself, Back Yourself and Make It Happen, the series. And where this has come from is what I was talking about. I think there are some practical leadership insights and advice and expertise that can be shared with people, to people who feel like they are ready to take their next step but may not quite know what it is. Like you said, I don't know what I don't know, but I don't feel like I've got everything I need right now. Is it you don't know what you don't know? Is it confidence? You know, people are tired at the moment. People feel disillusioned. We've been through a tough time, you know, and I just want to provide a space, like you said, a safe space where people can come and learn from me and my special guests on every session about some of the things that I think are important in leadership, but also about developing and nurturing yourself, you know, how you do that, and really practical advice about taking the next step. So it's 6 sessions: leadership mindset, supporting you to be brave, how to build relationships and influence people, and also about finding your leadership style during challenging times. But the last 2 sessions are very focused on taking your next steps. You know, what are some of the tools and things out there? Coaching, mentoring, training. We hear all about them. Sometimes people don't know what's really the difference between them and what would be right for me right now. But also then to share some information about some of the practical programs that are out there that people like me and you are actually commissioning and putting together. And I know people who are putting their own money into scholarship programs and training programs for women, for people from Black and brown backgrounds, and also for younger people. There's a lot out there at the moment, but as you said, not everybody knows. So I want to be able to use the space to encourage, to educate, to share experiences, but also provide some of that information to hopefully help people with really taking action in their next steps.
I think it's such a fantastic program, Monique, and
thank you.
I really, and anyone watching this who's interested, please get in touch with Monique, because you know, definitely. She, as you heard, she's got some, you know, she's just got such incredible experience, and I'm sure that your course is going to be so successful. There's going to be so much that's going to come out of it, and you know, I want to be on it. It sounds amazing.
Come and join us. First session is next Wednesday. As I said, it's on Zoom. I know Kamal, you'll provide some information. I can share the link with your audience as well, so we can do that. First session next Wednesday, and they'll be finished in time before your live show because it's 6 till 7:30. So we haven't got.
You can come and watch the live show at 8 o'clock. Fantastic! Thank you so much, Monique. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I really appreciate all of your openness and your, you know, all of the insights that you've shared with us, you know, about your experience of lead, you know, getting up to that leadership, you know, level within the NHS. And I just really, really thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate the invitation and having the space to share and talk openly. So thank you very much.
I'm back on again. Thank you so much, Monique. I lost internet connection just then, but I really appreciate your time. So I will speak to you soon. Thank you
very much. See you later. Bye.
Bye. That was Monique. I mean, she's so amazing. I hope that you guys got so much out of that conversation, because I've learned so much from her. And, you know, please do get in touch with Monique if you are interested in her leadership program that she's running. We will leave the links on all of the different channels. So please do get in touch with her. And of course, if you are a pharmacy professional and you would like some help with your career, then don't hesitate to get in touch with me. Message me. You can message me on LinkedIn. You can message me on Facebook. You can email me. My email is on my LinkedIn profile, kamal@kamaltheholisticpharmacist.com. You can always contact me there, and it will be my pleasure to support you on your career journey. So have a great evening. Take care, and I will see you next week. Bye.